All right, so this is the second video, and we're going to work on UV mapping. All right, so right now we have kind of our simple drum. And again, what I'm trying to show is how simple these models can be and really depend on texturing to kind of sell the realism of this. Right now, it just looks like a really sketchy model. Nothing great, right? Nothing realistic about that. And the light isn't, it's very flat, very boring. All right, so one of the things we need to do with this lesson is UV map it properly. And then also we need to assign materials to it too. So these are two very important things before we go into Substance Painter. All right, so what we're gonna do is go ahead and open up UV Editor. And this is under modeling. So the cool thing about this one is pretty simple because it's a cylinder. A lot of this is already UV mapped. All right. So we're gonna kind of play around and make sure it looks proper. So we're gonna select right click. You saw me go right click and hit UV shell. So I can grab these different components and move them around. All right, you can see this component is not really showing up. It's all intermingled with that. All right, and if we go back to our peer references, don't know if you can see the tops, but typically tops can be painted differently. Sometimes they're painted the same. Let's go. So you may want to, what we're going to do is basically treat maybe 2 to 3 different types of materials with this. All right, so this is why we do a lot of research before you start modeling, so you know what you're doing. All right, so we're going to go back to Maya here, and so this is basically the UV. It's not stretched out correctly, and again, if we select here, you'll see this is the bottom, and we select this. This is the whole entire top, but you can see a lot of information is there is not UV mapped correctly. So I'm going to go to modify, and we're going to hit unfold and see what kind of happens. All right. So when we hit unfold, it takes all that geometry that was selected and unfolds it. So it kind of pancakes it out. Kind of imagine if we took that top and we ran over it with a kind of a steamroller, that everything is flat and everything is equally getting hit with the same kind of treatment of surface area. So this is really, really important. And there's some great tools, and Maya, Blender has some great tools too. So don't be afraid to learn Blender. I'm just using what is the tools that are good for you now. So when I hit G, also to unfold this. All right, so we have our different components here. And what I want to do is go to face, and we're going to select all these, and I'm going to hit shift, select these guys, or deselect them, I'm sorry. And we can basically take this off. We can cut it. All right, so let's go ahead and cut. All right, let's hit W. Let's see if it did cut it. It did not cut it. All right, so we have it selected. I'm going to Command Z, and I'm actually going to go here to the top, sugar snaps, Command Z, and I'm going to do something called UV, and we're going to do planar, keep image ratio, project. All right, and basically what that does is it gives me, puts this in a different view, and I don't know why it just did that. All right, so let's go UV shell. We may be editing this as we go along. All right, so it is doing that. So we're gonna go modify and unfold and see what happens. All right, cool. Whew. All right, so why I'm doing this is so we can add materials to these later. All right, so you can see how huge this is. This is small, and this is really, really tiny. So we actually want to grab all our UV shells, go right click UV shell. And if I'm going too fast, I'm in the classroom, just grab me. So we're going to do unfold, which we've already done, and we're going to hit something called layout, which is an amazing product, and it will grab everything. Sometimes it'll take a long time, especially if it's a very complex form. But you can see now everything is in its correct ratio. So we have the top, the bottom, and then this is the oil cap, and then this is the side. All right, so we're almost ready to quit. Right now, I would go ahead and go to increment and save. All right, you can see up here we're at 002. All right, so if I crash, I can go back, or if I screwed up, I can go back to the first one and even to the original one. All right, so one of the really good fundamental things to do when you're doing this is you can, when you select an object, let's go ahead, object, you can see all the history that we've done, all that splitting, all that. So if we were extruding and I'm doing like a face, this would be a mile long. And actually that is a little bit of weight. So we don't want any of that garbage when we go into a game engine or even in rendering. You want to keep everything super light. So we're going to go to modify and go edit and delete by type and history. All right, so look over to the right, you can see all of that disappear. It should be nice and light so we don't have all that history associated with that. We also want to go over here to go modify, freeze transformation. And what that does, before I hit it, you can see my X, Y, Z and my scale. This is has this history, but we want to zero this out so it's 111. All right, so when we go into if we had modeled this like correct size, 1 meter by 2 meters or whatever, everything would be correct. So we got to go in here, modify, and freeze transformation. So you can see our trans X, Y, and Z rotate 0, 0, 0. So it's in dead center and scale X, Y, and Z. So if our trans X, Y, and Z was out like 4,000 out in the middle of the universe, when we import it into any software, we wouldn't be able to find it. So these are really good two things before you ever move on to texturing. Make sure you've freeze it out and also delete the history. All right, so the very last thing before we export out our selection is to add textures. And I think I'm going to do 3. All right, so for the top and bottom, we're going to do UV shell. I'm going to select these 2. And for this one, we're in modeling, we're going to click on this tab and go down to rendering. All right, so each of these tabs have hundreds and hundreds of different ways to interfacing with Maya. This is where it gets really confusing. So there's animation for rigging and FX for particle simulations and all kinds of stuff. Customized would be Mel and Python scripting that you can do down here. So this program is infinite in what you can do. All right, so we've got the top and the bottom, and I want this to be shiny steel. All right, so we're going to go into text, lighting and shading, assign new material, and we're just going to do Lambert. It doesn't really matter because we're going to add materials and Substance Painter. All right, it should have brought up a dialog so we can name it, and I'm not sure why that didn't happen. Let's try that again. Assign new material, Lambert. All right, so let's call this top and bottom. All right, and we're UV shell, we're going to select this and we're going to call it side. So we're going to do a new one, assign new material, Lambert, and we're going to go side can. Enter, and we'll do one more, and we're going to assign new material, and this is a Lambert, and we're going to call this top top can. I don't know what we're going to call it, the funnel. I probably misspelled it. All right, so we are done, and we deleted all the history. We have signed materials. We have to sign the materials before we go into Substance Painter because we have to tell exactly what these materials, where we want them to be. And you'll see what that means in our next video. All right, so we're going to stop there. Actually, we're not going to stop there. We're going to go ahead, export the selection. Make sure you have it selected. And we're going to go to desktop and go back down here, wheel drum. and you can see our Maya files, which are .mb. And I'm going to call this object slash fbx. All right, so we're going to do 2 of them. Well, sugar snaps. All right, so it's in a new folder. For some reason, it didn't like my, I guess it didn't like backslash. So oil can, oil drum. All right, so this is Maya binary. So we want to save this as an obj. Save. All right, and we're going to rinse and repeat. Let's go ahead and do increment save. And we're going to go ahead and export selection again. And we're going to select our oil can. And we're going to go to FBX. All right. And we'll hit oil can FBX, select export. All right, so if you didn't see FBX down there, you can go to Windows, Settings, Plugin Manager, and make sure your FBX is turned on. It's down here somewhere, but I think there it is, FBX. Just make sure that's loaded. It should automatically now with 2022 and 2023. All right, that is it. All right, so we have an FBX and an OBJ, and believe me, those materials are kind of embedded there. That there's that history is in there. All right, so I'm going to stop here. On our next video, we're going to go ahead and work on getting this baked out in Substance Painter.